In the first round of last year's playoffs, the New York Knicks and Detroit Pistons went to war, and they had one of the most physical and entertaining playoff series that we've seen over the past decade. And the clutch player of the year, Jalen Brunson, closed everything out with a nasty game winner. But before that shot, Detroit had multiple opportunities to pull ahead and close out the game. And more specifically, Cade Cunningham missed 3 bunnies at the rim in the final 4 minutes of this matchup. He's going to first turn the corner off the screen to his right, but Karl Anthony Towns rotating across rushes him into a miss. On this play, he's initially able to get the step past Towns, but even with a better angle, he gets pushed out into this leaning left-hand miss. Right here, tied game with under 30 seconds left, and Detroit's going to again put Cade in pick and roll. And he makes the right move by hesitating to move this big off his spot, but Cade does all the hard work by attacking towards the basket, but he still can't put the ball through the hoop.
Takes it in, missed it with the left hand, rebounded.
Now at 23 years old, Cade Cunningham is well on his way to being an NBA superstar, averaging over 26 points per game with 9 assists last year, while also leading the Pistons to their first playoff appearance since 2019. As an offensive engine, Cade's game is trending in the right direction. His mid-range and 3-point shooting is steadily improving, plus he's turning into one of the best overall playmakers across the league. However, like we saw, Cade's finishing does handicap how reliable he can be down the stretch. And throughout his career, he's always shot around 50% at the basket, which is well below the league average. And while this may seem like a pretty small part of his game, I would argue that being able to score at the rim is one of the most important skills for star players to have right now. When looking at all the top tier scorers in the league like Luka, Shea, or Donovan Mitchell, every single one of them are putting up monster numbers in the paint. And being able to consistently score in the lane gives those players a much higher floor as a scorer, because if shots on the outside aren't falling, they always have a reliable and efficient way to generate points. But right now, I don't think Cade has that. And that's one of the biggest reasons why he struggled in multiple fourth quarters against the Knicks.
Cunningham driving deep and a turnaround hook.
Now to start off with the positives, Cade is a big 6'6", 230 guard. So he does have enough strength and stability to lower his shoulder and move the defense off their spot. And if Cade's able to get his man on his hip, he does have the stability to stretch out and finish with either hand. With the ball, Cade also has a pretty good floater game. Because he has good pace with the ball in that 6'6" frame, it's pretty easy for him to stop short and find these 8-foot push shots. And Cade can get into these looks in a variety of ways. He can stride across the paint and rise up off 1 foot, or stop short on 2 feet and pop up these vertical looks. I like his timing on this finish, where Cade first attacks across the paint, lowers his shoulder into OG, then lifts up early off his right foot for this runner. When Cade's playing downhill, I also think he does a pretty good job of initiating contact. From a physical standpoint, I do think there's lots of stuff he needs to get better at, but there's still times where he finds success using his body to bump the defense off their spot, to then rise up for more of these soft over-the-top floaters. We'll see him here turn the corner off the screen, to then lower his shoulder into Cat's body, which slightly bumps him back and gives Cade this window to elevate. When playing downhill, I wouldn't say Cade is the craziest athlete, but if he gets a head of steam going towards the basket, he does have enough verticality to explode around or through the backline defense. The Knicks here initially botched this coverage, giving Cade this runway to the basket. So I think that pretty much sums up what Cade does well in the paint. He's got a good physical frame, good touch on short 8-foot floaters, and if he gets a head of steam going towards the basket, he's got enough juice to charge up and generate buckets and fouls. But when it comes to consistently finishing at the NBA level, there's lots of stuff missing in his game right now. First, in the lane, Cade really lacks patience. And it's weird because from 10 feet out, he's great at probing, keeping his dribble alive, and reading the defense. But once he really gets into the deep paint, his instincts are to always look to gather and quickly force up a finish. And things like this can work for freak athletes like Anthony Edwards, but for a guy like Cade, he really needs to add different curveballs to his finishing package. More specifically, I would love to see him add different strides and euro steps in the paint. Because he's both really good on the perimeter at breaking down the first line of defense and using his body to put his man on his hip in the lane, this creates a ton of opportunities to use different strides. Take this play for example. He's going to explode off the screen to his left. And look how OG is scrambling down to head off his stride. From this spot with OG's momentum pulling him across, I would love to see Cade pick up off his right foot and hit a left-right Euro step back across the paint. And this would either give him a clear angle to take a runner in the lane or set up one of his teammates on the weak side for an open 3. But he again rushes his pickup and forces up this bad look. We can see a similar thing here, where Cade first refuses to screen with a nice in and out, but while coming downhill, look how he's going to gather off his right foot to then immediately jump off his left. But after this pickup, he has 2 more steps to work with. Plus, Cat is totally selling out towards the ball on his first step. All Cade has to do is step across to his right, and that right there is a clean finishing window. In the paint, I also think Cade struggles from a physicality standpoint. If he receives contact, he typically drifts out into tough pull-ups or fadeaways. And while Cade does have good touch on these short push shots, some of these looks are really tough and off balance. And these shots for him just aren't that reliable. He's going to work off the screen towards an empty corner. And from this spot, it's just him and Josh Hart playing one-on-one. And as Cade looks to lower his shoulder, he just stops and looks for this difficult push shot.
Turns the corner, fades.
So I think the blend of Cade not being patient and physical in the lane kind of bleed into each other, because like we've seen, there's many times where he creates the right angle off the dribble, but he avoids contact and forces up a bad look. Going back to those 3 misses in clutch time, you can chalk it all up to him being in a rush and avoiding contact. Look how he picks up and forces up this floater instead of attacking Cat's body. And then on this play, he works all the way past him, but he doesn't veer into contact to create a more clear scoring angle. And he gets pushed out into this tough leading left-hand push shot. Then on this play, it's more of the same, where he slices through traffic, but him being in a hurry causes him to force up this layup that clanks off the backboard. Now the good news for Pistons fans is that outside of Cade's finishing, there's really no other negative parts to his game. First, in the mid-range, Cade is well on his way to being one of the best in-between scorers across the league. Last year, he shot over 50% on all his pull-up 2s with decent volume. And again, from these spots, Cade checks all the boxes, having the pace to read the defense, the handle and control to bump through contact and navigate to his spots, plus the lift to elevate over heavy contests.
Finds a spot. Jump shot is good.
And that in-between scoring also feeds into Cade's passing, which I honestly think is the best part of his game. When turning the corner off these screens, a pull-up threat often pulls the big up and across, opening up these routine pocket passes. And over the last few years, Jalen Duren has turned into a pretty effective roller. There's obviously parts of his game that are still pretty raw, but when he's coming downhill, he's an absolute battering ram. Plus, I think his decision making from the short roll got way better last year. And that if it's not Duren setting these screens, it's usually Ausar Thompson, who has his own set of ridiculous physical tools.
Thompson, nobody was there, he attacks.
With the ball, Cunningham is also elite at reading the second side of the floor. If the weak side defense commits too far over towards the paint, Cade has no problem snapping these on-point skip passes. And Cade can also leverage that skip pass to open up more dimes in the paint. Look how he's going to freeze these 2 weak side defenders by picking up and turning his head, which both gives Duren more space to catch the ball and Thompson room to cut along the baseline. We can see the same effect here, where Cade comes off the screen, and the mid-range shooting forces Josh Hart to shift up, and Brunson is stuck guarding 2 players on the weak side, and Thompson gets 2 more easy points. Now what I think really holds back the Pistons offense is the connective tissue around Cade. There's many times where he'll initially create an advantage for his teammates to play off of, but they can't capitalize. And I think a lot of this comes back to Detroit still having a young roster. I think guys like Duren and Thompson are getting better at making quick decisions, but at the same time, they still have a lot of room for growth. And until they get better at capitalizing on defensive breakdowns, the Pistons are always going to have a low ceiling offensively. But going forward, I think Detroit is going to be in good hands with Cunningham on the floor. Outside of his numbers around the basket, literally every part of his game is trending in the right direction. Going forward, if he can just bring his numbers at the rim up to par, we may be looking at a top 5 offensive player in the league. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments who the kids should break down next. The kids here.